Pause for a moment. Simply stop. There are junctures in life where the task is not to seek surface answers, but to turn inward toward that silent realm of being where ancient truths lie dormant, awaiting like seeds. I am not addressing your haste, nor your weary mind, nor that segment of the personality which still holds the belief that abundance hinges upon accumulation, toil, and human calculation. I am speaking to a far loftier, more enduring and wiser part, the aspect of you that Florence Scovel Shinn always championed, the consciousness which understands that the word molds destiny, and that speech possesses the power to traverse planes and rearrange matter. This luminous fragment within you, which no hardship has managed to extinguish, has always known that prosperity is an expression of the spirit, not a mere trophy for survival. There are individuals who spend decades believing they must conquer what is inherently theirs by birthright. They live in the delusion that they must compete, justify, and prove themselves worthy of every single crumb they receive. But the truth, that truth which always existed prior to financial anxieties, prior to any bank balance or debt collection, is that you were never born to beg for that which already vibrates within you. Wealth is not a distant trophy, but a natural extension of your spiritual authority. When Florence Scovel Shinn asserted that the word is your magic wand, she was not offering motivational poetry. She was revealing the invisible mechanics governing all manifestation. She taught that you do not need to contend with the world in order to witness its flourishing. You need only command it from the divine certainty already residing within you. And this is where many stumble. They mistake command for arrogance, spiritual authority for disordered ambition, and the act of declaration for the act of wanting. Yet, this is not about fiercely desiring something, nor is it about hoping that a miracle might occur. It is about adopting an internal posture that recognizes one's own source. You do not originate from lack. You do not originate from fear. You do not originate from scarcity. You originate from the creative consciousness, the same consciousness that shapes every opportunity the world has placed before you, even when you lack the eyes to perceive them. While many expend their energy attempting to physically push life forward, you are being called to move it with your voice. But first, it is necessary to realign the way you perceive yourself. There is a silent habit that erodes faith. The habit of speaking like someone who is pleading or begging. Phrases that diminish your strength, expressions that render your soul fragile, repetitive thoughts that curtail your creative capacity. And all of this does not manifest solely in what you voice aloud. Often, what truly impedes expansion is the muted tone vibrating within the mind, that internal sigh which murmurs, "Am I truly capable? What if it fails? Perhaps this isn't meant for me." Florence Scovel Shinn taught that life reflects precisely what we affirm with conviction, and conviction is not born on the lips, it is born in the spirit. Therefore, before we speak of abundance, we must address identity. Individuals who still believe that prosperity is an external prize continue to live as visitors in their own dominion. They tread as if dependent on the world's permission, as though every acquisition were an unexpected boon. But you are no visitor. You are an heir. You are part of the spiritual architecture that sustains all provision. Nothing that is inherently yours requires pursuit. Nothing that is inherently yours demands exhaustive struggle. What is yours responds to your tone. And not the anxious, insecure, hesitant tone, but the tone of one who reclaims the consciousness that Florence Scovel Shinn termed perfect power. And perhaps you are thinking, but how can I speak with authority if my current reality does not reflect it? Herein lies the key. Your present reality is not prophecy. It is an echo. It is a delayed reflection of antiquated thoughts, long-standing fears, and words uttered during days of profound exhaustion. It is not a sentence. It is not destiny. It is not identity. It is merely the shadow of what you previously believed. And like any shadow, it vanishes when the light shifts its position. Your voice is that light. Your decree is the nexus where everything begins to reorganize itself. When you declare spiritual truth with unwavering conviction, the world has no choice but to comply. Breathe deeply now, not as one attempting to relax, but as one remembering their true nature. Deep breathing expands the soul's capacity. It interrupts the racing mind, silences obsolete beliefs, and creates room for a vibration that has always been present, yet which you have occasionally neglected to access. As you breathe, realize this. You require no permission to shift your vibration. You need no ideal circumstance, no cosmic sign, no validation, and no guarantee. Everything commences when you choose to speak as one who recognizes the superior law carried within. And this law is not the law of brute effort, nor the law of human merit, nor the law of comparison, nor the law of waiting. It is the law of creative expression, the very law to which Florence Scovel Shinn dedicated her life to teaching. She used to say, "Nothing is out of reach when the word is aligned with the spirit." This signifies that when your word, both the one you utter and the one you think, resonates with the vibration of abundance, everything begins to respond in your favor. Not out of charity, but out of energetic coherence. I speak to you now as one who awakens the spiritual memory of the power you have always possessed. You are not a follower of abundance. You are the source of it. You are not a suppliant on the sidelines of life. You are the nucleus from which everything organizes itself. You are not a confused traveler trying to figure out where prosperity fits in. You are the very door that opens when the voice finds the truth. And everything shifts when you decide you will no longer live as one who awaits an opportunity to fall from the sky, but as one who creates opportunities with spiritual fortitude. There is a point on the spiritual path where an individual realizes that it is not the world that needs to change first, but the sound they produce. The vibration of the voice, the tone of the phrases repeated internally, the posture with which one addresses circumstances. All of this creates waves that propagate and return as tangible outcomes. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that manifestation is not a singular event, but a natural response to a firmly sustained vibration. When someone speaks from a place of fear, life contracts. When someone speaks with an awareness of their own innate power, life expands around them. What many have yet to realize is that money is not merely an object, a number, a ledger entry, or a sum on a digital screen. Money is a frequency, a combination of intention and clarity. It responds not to the anxiety with which it is pursued, but to the certainty with which it is summoned. Just as a perfectly tuned instrument responds to the musician who knows what they are doing, prosperity responds to the voice that has already understood it was created to command, not to supplicate. When Florence Scovel Shinn asserted that the right word releases the perfect way, she was describing precisely this dynamic. It is not physical force that unlocks doors, but the spiritual quality of the sound you emit. For this reason, it is such a common and destructive error to conceptualize wealth as something distant and unattainable. When you believe you must traverse emotional deserts or scale mountains of difficulty to earn the right to prosper, you move away from your authentic self. Prosperity is not a marathon. It is a state of alignment. And this alignment commences when you recognize that everything you desire exists first as vibration before it exists as form. When you declare the truth, you are not merely speaking. You are molding the invisible space where all possibilities await instruction. The difficulty emerges when one attempts to affirm abundance verbally, yet harbors scarcity within their core. It is akin to attempting to ignite a bonfire with a damp match. The intention is genuine, but the spark is missing. And the spark, in this context, is internal congruence. Florence Scovel Shinn maintained that fear is merely inverted faith, and when we examine this statement with candor, we realize it is not a metaphor, it is a spiritual diagnosis. Those who fear believe robustly, believe profoundly, believe with conviction, but they believe in the wrong outcome. They place their faith in the potential for loss, for deficiency, for failure. And this inverted faith manifests forms just as rapidly as genuine faith. This is why so many witness the same recurring cycle, not because the universe intends to teach them a lesson, but because they perpetually repeat the same emotional vibration. It is necessary, therefore, to reverse the trajectory of this energy. Scarcity is not countered by desperation, it is countered by authority. Doubt is not countered by justifications. It is countered by the silent certainty that arises when you remember that life is more malleable than it appears. Money is not stubborn. It does not resist the correct resonance. It merely reflects the dominant intention. Consider the surface of still water. Any sound, any vibration, any gesture, however slight, creates ripples that propagate in all directions. Your voice performs this function with abundance. Every phrase you utter about yourself, every thought you nurture regarding your capability, every internal decision you make about your self-worth generates waves that construct your financial destiny. And perhaps you have never realized this, but there is a hidden language inherent in how you speak of your future. The way you reference your opportunities, the manner in which you characterize your challenges, the tone you employ when speaking to yourself reveal precisely the invisible covenant sustaining your current reality. Florence Scovel Shinn stated that the subconscious mind does not expend energy distinguishing the real from the symbolic. It merely receives instructions. Consequently, when you state that it is difficult, the subconscious understands that it must validate that difficulty. When you say that everything is flowing, it comprehends that it must uphold that flow. When you say that the doors are closed, it begins to close them further. When you say that everything is opening up, it begins to construct pathways. And this is where we begin to profoundly shift the vibration, by speaking not as one who observes, but as one who decrees. Observation describes. Decree transforms. Observation reports. Decree ordains. Observation reacts. Decree governs. You are not here to be the chronicler of reality. You are here to be a co-creator. Your word must not be a report of circumstances, but the seed that sows new circumstances. When you alter the way you speak, the world alters the way it responds. This is not fantasy. This is spiritual law. And Florence Scovel Shinn knew this when she declared, "Nothing can withstand a word spoken with faith." Now, pause for a few moments and internalize a truth. You possess more power than you realize. Vastly more. The deficit is not in capacity, nor talent, nor intellect, nor opportunity. The deficit is in remembering to wield your voice as a creative tool, not as an instrument of lamentation. When you speak with conviction, wealth realigns. When you speak with clarity, the path unfolds. When you speak with faith, everything begins to mobilize. Before we proceed, engage in this exercise with me. Inhale deeply, release the air slowly, and allow your mind to reorganize itself around a simple, luminous truth. You were not designed to struggle against life. You were designed to converse with it. And when the conversation is steadfast, reality bends to heed. Now, before we continue, I want to extend an open-hearted invitation, but without the insistent tone that often alienates people. If this content is awakening something within you, if some part of your soul has felt a distinct resonance, if Florence Scovel Shinn's message is echoing in a new and powerful way internally, then click to subscribe to the channel. Not out of habit, not by adhering to protocol, but because you deserve to walk daily alongside words that strengthen your vibration. And I want to ask you something special. Write in the comments which phrase from this video resonated with you distinctively. Share a sensation, a recollection, an insight that struck you while listening. Do not do this as a fulfillment of obligation. Do it as one who plants a seed in the garden of their own prosperity. A profound pivotal shift occurs when a person finally realizes they are not attempting to entreat money to come to them, but rather activating a universal principle that has always responded to the human voice. Florence Scovel Shinn often stated that the word pronounced with faith does not seek permission to exist. It simply creates. And when we grasp this, the relationship with abundance changes completely. It is not about haggling with life, nor waiting for something to fortuitously materialize someday. It is about deciding, declaring, and sustaining the vibration of that decision with internal integrity. The profound misconception many individuals harbor is the belief that money responds to physical exertion. It does not. Effort generates fatigue, movement, and action. But prosperity is a vibrational, not mechanical, outcome. This is why some people toil relentlessly and remain trapped in the same cycle, while others, through seemingly simple actions, witness doors opening with seamless fluidity. It is not favoritism, nor luck, nor chance. It is alignment with an unseen law that operates 24 hours a day, irrespective of individual beliefs. This law responds to the tenor of consciousness. Florence Scovel Shinn referred to this as the field of the word, the space where everything spoken with spiritual clarity finds corresponding form. The reality is that many still speak as if held captive by their own narrative. They repeat phrases inherited from entire generations defined by financial fear, phrases transmitted not out of malice, but out of ignorance. Money vanishes quickly. Wealth is not meant for people like me. Life is truly harsh. I don't know if I can achieve it. These expressions function like ropes tethering the soul to a vibration of scarcity. An individual may acquire books, take courses, watch videos, and learn techniques. But so long as these phrases remain active within them, abundance will be constrained within a narrow sliver, struggling to find space to manifest. This is why replacing one's language is so potent. When an individual shifts their words, they alter the script of their own existence. Florence Scovel Shinn was resolute on this point. The word is your clothesline where you hang your desires for the universe to see. And she was correct. Words create images, images create vibrations, and vibrations create realities. The cycle is literal, not metaphorical. This is why when you change the way you speak about money, you alter the frequency you transmit to the invisible field, and it responds. Perhaps you have never realized it, but a fear exists that anchors many to the past. The fear of commanding. People grew up hearing that they must plead, implore, wait, and earn the right. They were conditioned to believe that spiritual authority constitutes arrogance. And thus, they forfeited the right to decree, which is the spirit's most ancient prerogative. Decreeing is not about shouting at life. It is speaking the language of divine law. It is affirming something not because human logic confirms it, but because your spiritual origin validates it. And when you speak in this manner, life cannot possibly resist. It is important to note that decreeing does not signify ignoring emotions. On the contrary, it means utilizing them as fuel. When you affirm, "My prosperity is expanding," you are not denying a momentary challenge. You are transcending the challenge. You are informing your subconscious. This is the new point of reference. And it complies, because the subconscious does not resist repetition infused with feeling. It merely absorbs and replicates. And how does one activate this state? It begins with the breath. A deep inhalation recalibrates the inner self. The body expands. The mind decelerates. The soul takes the helm. Florence Scovel Shinn asserted that deep breathing is the bridge between intention and manifestation, because it dissipates internal chaos and clears the way for conviction to enter. Therefore, inhale once more. Allow the air to reach the depths of your chest and exhale slowly, steadily, as if sweeping away antiquated thoughts. And within that silence, where your consciousness is more expansive, utter internally a simple phrase: "I allow abundance to find me." This phrase is potent because it disarms resistance. Many desire prosperity, yet unconsciously obstruct the flow with guilt, fear, insecurity, shame, obsolete beliefs, and memories of failure. When you say, "I allow," you dismantle the unseen impediments that were stifling expansion. To allow is not passivity. It is cooperation with the law. It is as if you are opening the inner portals so that life might flow in organically. There is also an essential point. You must approach your financials with spiritual reverence. Many people speak aggressively when looking at their account statements, as if the number were an adversary. They forget that the number is merely a reflection, a projection of the past, not a decree of the future. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that every number is an old announcement, something that has already transpired, a vibrational photograph of a previous phase of consciousness. When you look at the number and react with fear, you reinforce the past. When you look and speak with authority, you create the future. Therefore, upon seeing any amount, speak with serenity. This is merely a starting point. My expansion begins now. And when you utter this with sincerity, something extraordinary occurs. The internal atmosphere shifts. You feel your body lighter, your mind more receptive, your chest more tranquil. This is not coincidence. It is an immediate vibrational effect. When the body senses that you are secure, it ceases to respond with rigidity. When the mind senses that you have assumed command, it stops generating catastrophic scenarios. When the soul perceives that you have returned to your creative nature, It reclaims the space that was always its own. Many people believe that spirituality and prosperity are incompatible, having been conditioned to separate the two. But Florence Scovel Shinn spent her life elucidating that prosperity is spirituality in action. Not because money is sacred, but because the expression of abundance is the natural reflection of a mind aligned with divine law. A mind that knows that all is possible, that all is malleable, that all is fluid when the word is anchored in truth. And this is precisely what you are activating now. The recollection of your inherent creative nature. You are not a mere spectator of destiny. You are the artist. You are not a witness to the abundance enjoyed by others. You are the one who summons it forth with the very same authority that Florence Scovel Shinn taught the world. Your voice is the brushstroke. Your spirit is the pigment. Your decree is the final masterpiece. There is a single instant in the journey where everything silently realigns. The moment you begin to perceive your own voice not merely as a sound, but as a structural force. A force that shapes occurrences, that opens pathways, that shifts realities. Florence Scovel Shinn asserted that the human voice is the most direct extension of divine consciousness, because it does not merely describe the world, it actually architects the world. While many believe that life responds to circumstances, she taught that life responds to the internal tone a person chooses to sustain. And when that tone shifts, the entire universe is compelled to adjust. This recognition proves challenging when the mind is conditioned to worry about tangible results. When one reviews their bank statement and sees figures that fall short of their aspirations, the immediate inclination is to believe that external reality holds more power than the internal one. But this is an ancient fallacy. Physical reality is invariably the delayed image of the vibrational state. It does not arrive first. It arrives subsequently. Life is not constructed from the outside in. It is engineered from the inside out and merely manifests externally. Florence Scovel Shinn affirmed this by stating that the visible world is a slide, or projection, of the invisible world, and the invisible world is governed by the spoken word. This is why it is critical to grasp the distinction between describing and defining. When you describe a reality, you merely reaffirm that which is already present. When you define, you dictate what the subsequent version of yourself shall be. And this decision is what mobilizes the invisible field. Individuals who lose themselves in description become trapped in cyclical patterns, for they articulate what they perceive, and in articulating it, they reinforce what they perceive. But those who define, those who state with absolute clarity, my life is expanding, my prosperity is assured, my vibration is ascending daily, these are the ones who construct the bridge to the next level. This occurs because every repeated vibration generates a stable energetic form. Consider a drum that vibrates when someone plays beside it. The surface reacts to the sound, even without being physically struck. So too is the universe. It vibrates in accordance with what you emit. Florence Scovel Shinn termed this creative resonance, a straightforward law which posits that whatever you sustain internally must find its corresponding match externally. Not because the universe seeks to appease you, but because it is structurally impossible for two disparate vibrations to remain in prolonged conflict. One must invariably yield to the other. And here is the revelation that many people avoid confronting. The dominant vibration is always internal. Always. Not the visible reality, not the figures, not the circumstances, but what you genuinely believe when no one is watching. Consequently, your financial life does not change when you rage at the world. It changes when you shift the tone within yourself. Prosperity does not arrive because you desire it. It arrives because you become someone who does not contradict their own decree. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that every person lives between two voices, the voice of the spirit and the voice of fear. The voice of the spirit is resolute, tranquil, assertive, and secure. The voice of fear is clamorous, urgent, dramatic, and filled with ominous foreboding. And life is determined by the voice you nourish. It is not that fear is stronger. It is simply that it speaks louder when you are disconnected from who you truly are. But when you remember, when you breathe deeply, when you affirm something with conviction, when you choose to align with divine law, the voice of the spirit expands and assumes its rightful place. And it is from this vantage point that your life begins to reorganize itself. It is also important to note that abundance does not arrive as an isolated event. It arrives as a complete reorganization of demeanor. When you align with Florence Scovel Shinn's spiritual truth, the way you perceive the world changes. The way you respond to situations changes. The way you think about yourself changes. And when your identity shifts, everything, absolutely everything around you, must adjust to this new identity. Not because it is magic, but because it is law. From this juncture, your challenges take on a different significance. They cease to appear as obstacles and begin to resemble invitations. Invitations to expand, to deepen, to reaffirm your truth. Many people believe that challenges are signs of blockage, but Florence Scovel Shinn taught that challenges are merely points of alignment. When a challenge appears, it is silently asking, do you genuinely believe what you have affirmed? Or are there still parts of you that hesitate? And it is in that response that your life is transformed. This is why it is so powerful when you learn to address money as one speaks to an ally, not an adversary. When you regard your responsibilities with the serenity of one who knows they are greater than any circumstance. When you perceive your capacity as something that does not depend on the whims of the world, but on the stability of your vibration. Florence Scovel Shinn asserted that no good can be taken from one who is in alignment, and this statement holds more truth than it appears. Alignment is a vibrational shield. Nothing externalized can breach it. And now, I want you to recognize something profoundly important. Your voice is changing. The intrinsic rhythm of your phrasing is shifting. The way you breathe while listening is being modified. This occurs because your consciousness is adjusting itself to what is already rightfully yours by spiritual decree. You are returning home, not a physical dwelling, but the vibrational domicile where you have always known how to command, create, and declare. Florence Scovel Shinn spoke of life reconfiguring itself when an individual chooses to assume their rightful position on the spiritual chessboard. And you are doing exactly that now, at this very moment. Your vibration is becoming purer. Your mind is gaining clarity, your heart is becoming more steadfast. And it is from this very steadfastness that your reality will begin to align itself. There is a truth few dare to face. Money was never the central focus of the journey. It is merely a messenger, a reflection, an indicator of the vibration you are sustaining. Florence Scovel Shinn stated that prosperity is a consequence, not a cause. It is a result, not an objective. When you shift your consciousness, the material world simply follows suit like a disciplined shadow. And this is precisely what begins to occur when you realize that your voice is not just an utterance, but a spiritual invocation capable of moving invisible structures. The greatest transformation transpires the moment you stop treating life as something that must be conquered and start treating it as something that must be directed. Many live decades believing their circumstances are sovereign, that their metrics are definitive, that their hardships are permanent, and that their limits are inherent. But when you awaken to spiritual law, you realize that all of this was merely a temporary reflection of older vibrations. None of it constitutes a sentence. None of it holds greater power than the decree of someone aligned with the truth. It is striking how reality bends before someone who assumes their spiritual authority. Their posture changes. Their body changes. Their gait changes. Their breathing changes. Their choices change. The vibration becomes more stable, and upon achieving stability, it attracts experiences that previously seemed unattainable. Florence Scovel Shinn stated that the invisible organizes itself around certainty. And this is precisely what is observed when one decides to stop narrating limitations and begins decreeing possibilities. From this elevated consciousness, money ceases to appear distant and begins behaving as an ally. It does not arrive through the narrow door of necessity, but through the wide gate of clarity. The shift is so profound that surrounding individuals begin to notice without even comprehending the reason. Opportunities materialize, decisions become easier, and the flow accelerates. This occurs not because of external fortune, but because of alignment. Not because of an outward miracle, but because of internal coherence. The dominant vibration has become the vibration of certainty. And when you embody the vibration of certainty, fear loses its voice. It may attempt to whisper, but you no longer recognize it as authoritative. It may try to infiltrate, but it finds no dwelling place. Florence Scovel Shinn explained that fear is like a mist. It appears solid when you are within it, but it dissolves instantly when you switch on the light of the aligned word. This is why decreeing works, because the decree is light. It illuminates inner areas that were trapped in the darkness of doubt, and when the light arrives, the vibration reorganizes. The reorganized vibration attracts everything in harmony with it. And this is where life expands. It begins to respond to versions of yourself you are still getting acquainted with. The version that speaks with unwavering conviction. The version that does not negotiate with lack. The version that does not ask permission to exist. The version that requires no external validation to know it is worthy. The version that Florence Scovel Shinn would call the consciousness of the fulfilled word. This consciousness transforms everything. You realize you are in control of your own narrative, not through force, but through clarity. You no longer attempt to mend the past. You no longer try to justify yourself. You no longer strive to fit into external expectations. You finally recognize that your life responds to what you sustain, not to what others believe about you. And when this understanding solidifies, the world expands in the same measure that you expand. In this new state, you begin to perceive every number as flexible matter, every situation as a shifting scenario, every challenge as an invitation to reaffirm your frequency. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that those aligned with the law need not fear any contrary appearance, because the appearance dissolves before the sustained truth. The truth is not what your eyes behold, it is what your soul recognizes. And within this recognition, a new kind of peace is born. A peace that relies not on circumstances, but on presence. A peace that relies not on results, but on conviction. A peace that relies not on external security, but on the profound understanding that you are always guided, always supplied, always accompanied by the intelligence that moves all things in the universe. When you speak from this peace, your words become decrees. Not forced decrees, but organic decrees, like the breath of someone who has finally found their own center. Now, perceive this. Everything within you is being prepared for a new level. Your internal vibration is lighter, broader, firmer. The energy surrounding your body is more organized. Your mind is quieter. The field is clearer. This is not imagination. It is attunement. You are tuning into the same force that Florence Scovel Shinn taught so many times. The force that clears the perfect path when you choose to walk with faith and the aligned word. And before we conclude, allow me to place a concept at the forefront of your awareness. You are not waiting for the money. Rather, the money is waiting for your voice. It awaits your decision, your clarity, your decree, your vibration. Nothing that is rightfully yours shall fail to find you. Nothing that belongs within your sphere shall fail to manifest. Nothing created specifically for you can be diverted when your word is aligned with the spirit. Take one final, deep breath. Hold the air for 1 second. And now release it slowly, as one who sheds everything that no longer resonates with their new vibration. And as you exhale, state internally, I command abundance with wisdom. I receive effortlessly. I distribute with generosity. I live in alignment with the divine law. And before this video concludes, I wish to extend a heartfelt and luminous invitation. If this content has resonated with your soul, subscribe to the channel to walk this path with us daily. Here, we grow together, we learn together, we vibrate together. And I want to ask you for something special. Share a personal narrative in the comments. An experience you had, or something that shifted after you began applying the wisdom of Florence Scovel Shinn. Write about what you felt, what you discovered, what you realized about yourself during this video. Your story might illuminate someone who is still at the beginning of their journey. Your voice could be the spark that ignites another person's abundance. And by sharing, you reinforce your own vibration.